A few months ago, one of our members, Edie Irons, told me the story of how she came to join our church. Edie said she had participated for many years, but never got around to joining, and one day our former senior minister, Gene Owens, asked her point blank, "Edie, why don't you join our church?" To which Edie responded, "Well, Gene, I'm just not sure I believe it all." Gene said, "Well, Edie, what do you believe?" Edie said, "I believe in love." And Gene exclaimed, "You're in." If you believe in love, you're in. You're a part of our church. You're a member. It's really that simple. And it's always been that simple throughout our history. As we say when we celebrate communion, there are no requirements of creed, denomination, affiliation, or age. Simply come, bring all the faith you have to this table of grace. We welcome and affirm all people regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, economic status, political affiliation, or religious belief, whoever you are and wherever you come from. If you believe in love, you're in. But love is just the beginning. Our covenant proclaims that we are a people on a journey of faith, open to all new light, discovering what it means for us to become new creatures, which means that we are not only people who believe in love, we're also people possessed by a dream we're working on that is growing and evolving and begging to be embodied in new ways with every generation. And that is why every year on Startup Sunday, our first senior minister, Dr. Heaton, would remind everyone about the dream and ask the congregation, what will become of our dream? What will become of our dream? What a question for us to ask at this moment in history. What will become of our dream in the midst of a global pandemic, an economic catastrophe, under an authoritarian regime, during the most consequential presidential election in our lifetimes, in the largest uprising for racial justice, while the church in America, which has been in rapid decline, has now been forced into immediate technological transformation? This is a prescient time, and it feels apocalyptic, like we are standing at the threshold with no way of knowing what the future might hold. So much has been lost. Everything is changing. The ground feels like shifting sand under our feet. The future feels completely uncertain, and nothing feels tied down or tethered anymore. All we have now are our memories and our dreams. Our reality bears a striking resemblance to the people of Israel suffering in exile. They had lost so much, and their future remained uncertain. The people of Israel did not want to be in exile anymore. They wanted to go home. They were heartsick and homesick and desperately longing to go back to the way things were before the war and the devastation, before they were captured and taken into exile, before their oppression under the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar. Their greatest hope and most powerful dream was just to go back home. We understand exactly how they felt, don't we? We haven't seen each other for so long. We've been in exile. On this homecoming Sunday, as we gather together for the first time in over 6 months, we know what it feels to long for home, to go back to the way that it was, to desire a sense of normalcy, to dream about going back to the way things were before the crisis. When we are homesick with nostalgia, we will grasp onto any dream that sounds good or hopeful or optimistic about the future, even if that dream might be false or untrue. Homesickness and nostalgia make us easy targets. There was a prophet named Hananiah who played on the homesick nostalgia of the people of Israel and offered them a tantalizing false hope, and they ate it up like it was comfort food. Hananiah told the people that they would only be in exile a short while there in Babylon, and proclaimed them the false promise that God would break the yoke of King Nebuchadnezzar in just 2 years. Soon everything would go back to the way it was. In just a few years, God was going to make everything great again. It was a false dream, but it was compelling to the nostalgic and homesick people who were just looking for any hope that they could hang on to. The prophet Jeremiah knew that God had a different dream for God's people. So he confronted Hananiah and this false hope. But Hananiah wasn't going down with a fight. And in the middle of their debate, Hananiah dramatically tore Jeremiah's prophetic mantle off his neck and broke it in half to symbolize the end of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. You have to respect Hananiah's flair and passion. But the dream he was offering the people was a lie. And no matter how harmless they seem, or how great they sound, or how good it feels for us to believe them, false hopes and false dreams are always deadly. The God of Israel is a God of truth and has no patience for lies. And God said to Jeremiah, "Go tell Hananiah, that false prophet, you've broken wooden bars only to forge iron bars in their place. You've made my people trust in a lie. Therefore, I'm going to send you off of the face of the earth." In 2010, Christopher Nolan released the movie Inception, starring Leonardo DiCaprio as a professional thief who steals information by infiltrating the dreams of his targets. The film takes place in an interconnected dream sequence, a dream within a dream within a dream, where actions in the real world and dreams ripple across each other, leaving the viewer unable to tell the difference between a dream and reality. The film calls us to take the power of our dreams quite seriously and forces us to consider the questions: can we share our dreams with one another? And can our dreams be manipulated? One of the famous slogans of the film is "Downwards is the only way forward," by which Nolan meant that only by entering into a deep interrogation and analysis of our dreams can we find our way forward into the future as a people. As Americans living in the 21st century, our lives are awash with a multiplicity of dreams. We have personal dreams for our lives that our culture tells us to follow blindly. Follow your dreams. We have dreams for our children and grandchildren. We have an American dream that looms large over every political conversation and remains elusive for many. We have Dr. King's dream of an anti-racist future when black children and white children will eat together at the table of humanity. And then we have the dream of our church and all that it means. What has the pandemic revealed about our dreams? Can we fulfill all of our dreams? Are our dreams real, or are they fake dreams, false hopes, or even lies? Which dreams are the most important to us? Langston Hughes, the poet of the Harlem Renaissance, wrote a lot about dreams. In one poem, he famously wondered, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust over and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? The American dream has exploded in 2020. For hundreds of years, our Native American and African American neighbors and forebears have been trying to tell us that the American dream is a bold-faced lie. It is a lie because it is a dream for some and a nightmare for others. It is a lie because it means prosperity for some and poverty for others. It is a lie because it means domination for some and depravity for others. It is a lie about America itself, a lie about who we were and who we are. Many of us not only believed the lie, but invested our lives and built our identities on the lie that has been sold to us over and over again by every false prophet of American empire. Today, the lie has been exposed and exploded once for all for the deception that it is, and yet we often remain in denial. And our inability to face the lie is killing us all. When Jeremiah confronted Hananiah's lies, he was labeled by the people as unpatriotic and disloyal. In their nostalgia and homesickness, the people of Israel preferred to believe in Hananiah's lie rather than to believe in God's dream. That's the way it goes. Our desire for comfort, certainty, and security is so powerful, we are often willing to trade the exquisite beauty of God's magnificent dream for a sad lie of our own making. God's dream is so much bigger and broader and more beautiful than any of the false dreams and false hopes and lies that we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel good. God always wants more for us than we can imagine for ourselves. But how can God break through the fog of our despair and all of our nostalgia and all of our longing to go back to our homesicknesses and denial? How can God break through all of that? God sends us a love letter, an epistle of love that invites us to dream God's dream here and now and to become God's dream for the world right where we are. In this love letter, God offered some of the most encouraging words in all of Scripture. For surely I know the plans that I have for you, plans for your welfare and not for harm, to give you a future with hope. When I was a teenager, I had these words as a poster on my wall. They were spoken over me by my parents and pastors, by my friends and mentors. They are favorite for people in uncertain times who are trying to figure out what God's calling is for them and for their future. I always thought about them in a very individualistic way. But God didn't write this love letter to one person. God wrote to a community of people. The word you here is plural, and the word plans should be translated dreams. I know the dreams I have for y'all, is what God was saying. God wrote, they are not Hananiah's dreams of a quick return, or King Nebuchadnezzar's dreams of empire, or even your dreams of going back to normal. They are my dreams for your welfare and your future. They are my dreams for you to live and to thrive as a beloved community here in exile where you are. Tony Campolo said, America might be the best Babylon ever, but it's still Babylon. And that means that no matter what empire we find ourselves in, even if it's the one we were born and grew up in, as followers of Jesus, we are called to live as exiles, never getting too cozy with the powers that be. God's dream is not the same as the American dream or the dreams we have for ourselves or our children. God's dream is not the same as Dr. King's dream or even the dream of our church. God's dream is the dream of the kingdom that Jesus described, where the poor are blessed and the meek inherit the earth, and those who hunger and thirst are filled. It's the upside-down kingdom of the great reversal, where the least are the greatest and the last are first, and those on the margins are invited to the center of the table. It's the kingdom of the new humanity, where there is no longer Jew or Greek or slave or free, woman or man, but all are one in Christ. It's not a national dream, but it is corporate, social, and political, a dream of an alternative community living in exile, people who love each other with justice and equity, who don't long to go back to the past, but seek the peace of the city in which they find themselves here and now in the present. Dorothy Soley once wrote, "It's not you who should solve my problems, God, but I yours. God of the asylum seekers. It's not you who should feed the hungry, but I who should protect your children from the terror of banks and armies. It's not you who should make room for the refugees, God, but I who should receive you in the flesh. Hardly hidden God of the desolate, you dreamed me, God. Practicing walking upright and learning to kneel down, more beautiful than I am now, happier than I dare to be, freer than our country allows. Don't ever stop dreaming me, God. I don't want to stop remembering that I am your tree, planted by your streams of living water." In this great love letter to the exiles, God said, "Don't let the prophets deceive you. Don't listen to the dreams that they dream, for it is a lie that they are prophesying to you in my name. I did not send them. Instead, put down your roots. Dig in where you are for the long haul. Grow where you are planted. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Seek the peace and the welfare of the city in which you are in exile. Pray on its behalf, for it is in that welfare that you will find your welfare." God's dream for us is that we will stop believing in all the fake dreams and false hopes and flat lives of the empire, and that we will work to line up all our personal dreams and our family's dreams and our national dream and our church's dream with God's dream for the world. God's dream is not for us to go heaven or to go back home. God's dream calls for us to be creative about making a world of peace through building and planting and growing and cultivating a way for the new creation to bloom and flourish right here. God's dream is for us to build the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. This must become our daily prayer and our nightly dream. Yes, Inception taught us that our dreams can be manipulated, but also that our dreams can be shared. We can share our dreams with each other, and together we can share God's dream for us and for our world. A dream of peace in a world at war. A dream of peace in a violent nation. A dream of peace in a culture of death. A dream of peace and true shalom, where people live in harmony with each other and we exist in right relationship with God, ourselves, other human beings, and all created things. There's no one going back to the way things were, and every false prophet who tells us otherwise is lying. No matter what the Hananiahs of the world say, there are no quick fixes to the problems that we face. No vaccine or presidential candidate can cure the disease that afflicts the soul of our nation. Jeremiah told the people it would be 70 years in exile, and it may take even longer for us. But that's no reason for us to despair, because we've been given marching orders, and we have work to do. We have a role to play as the peacemakers of the earth. We are the bearers and the builders of God's dream, and we have to keep on working every single day to fulfill the dream that God has set out before us. Dr. Heaton once proclaimed, "The dream, it does not belong to me, it does not belong to you, it is God's dream. God's rearrangement of all of our lives, and if we are possessed of it, we shall always be moved by that dream, so that there is no place where we shall stop to fashion in permanent form something which must forever change. When we become possessed of a dream, we didn't dream of a church edifice or an institution or a program or an organization, but we dreamed of what God might do with each of us together in bringing into actuality our unique and unprecedented, never-recurring potentialities." The dream of our church never belonged to us alone. It has always belonged to God. It has always been about discovering our role in promoting the general welfare of all people and seeking the common good for all in our society, establishing a community of peace that ensures the well-being of all people and all nations and states and cities and towns in which we find ourselves here and now. It was never about pining for home or building an empire. God's dream is about building a more just and equitable future right where we are in exile. God's dream is kingdom and new creation, beloved community. God's dream is a communion of peace and true belonging. While deep and abiding communion may seem like an impossible dream right now, scholar Willie Jennings says, Jesus blesses the bread and breaks open God's dream, one part in each hand. To those on his left and to those on his right, Jesus said the same thing as he handed them God's dream. Eat this dream, and it will kill the dream that kills. Hands trembling, they wondered which of their dreams would die and which would grow stronger. Today we come together to receive this love letter from God and Jeremiah, to eat God's dream, to ingest it, and to let it become a part of who we are, to make it our own dream. And so today, may we taste God's dream of true belonging, and may it kill all the false dreams that do not bring life. and may it nourish us with the kind of love that creates a beautiful community of peace. Amen. Let it be so.